טוב חברים, אנחנו ממשיכים לעקוב אחרי מה שקורה במלחמת רוסיה-אוקראינה, ואני מעלה חומר אנליטי מאנשים בכירים בישראל. והיום אני רוצה להביא לכם את רחל אברהם, שהיא מנכ"לית של מרכז דונה גרציה לדיפלומטיה באוניברסיטת בן גוריון, והיא מתייחסת לכמה דברים שהיו בזמן האחרון, בעיקר המתיחות בין צרפת לרוסיה, איפה ישראל צריכה להיות ולמצב את עצמה ביחסים שלה עם רוסיה מול האיום האיראני, כשאנחנו לוקחים בחשבון שיתוף פעולה שיש בין איראן לרוסיה. כמו כן, רחל אברהם מתייחסת גם למדיניות של ביידן. כולנו ראינו את הבעיות להעביר סיוע לאוקראינה ואיך ממשל מתפקד בתנאים כאלה. והדברים האלה חשובים, כדאי לראות. הקרדיט לתוכן הוא מאתר newswall co.il. אני כבר הבאתי כמה תכנים מהאתר הזה, ותכתבו מה אתם חושבים. אני עוד פעם פחות רוצה לתת פה עמדה שלי, ואתם תראו סרטונים שגם אני מתייחס לנושאים ואני מביע עמדות. פה אני רוצה שאתם תראו מגוון של דעות ותביעו דעה משלכם, כן? מבלי שאתם צריכים להתייחס למה שאני אומר ספציפית בנושא כזה או אחר. זאת אומרת, אני מעלה דברים לדיון.
I think it's just rhetoric. I think the French these days do not have the energy needed to face Russia down on the ground in a military offensive over Ukraine. I think the French very much learned their lesson after Napoleon tried to invade Russia, and I don't think they have an interest to do it. I think it's just propaganda. I definitely don't think it's sufficient. They need also America to support them, and the truth of the matter is Biden is a coward, and he doesn't have the courage needed to take on an adversary like Russia. If he can't even take on the Iranians over their nuclear program, of course he's not going to take on Putin, who has much greater ability to fight against the United States than the Iranians do. Well, if he gives military support without the approval of Congress, he could get into a lot of trouble, especially during an election year, especially at a time when Americans are looking at what goes on in their borders and don't care so much what happens abroad. So I think he's just playing it safe. I think the Americans, like the Europeans, want to provide emotional and logistic support to Ukraine, but I think they lack the courage needed in order to actually get on the ground and help Kyiv. I would say that he has done his best to defend his country in a very difficult situation. He wouldn't be the last leader or the first who decides to postpone an election because he's in the middle of the war and he doesn't feel like the security conditions exist presently in order to have an election. I don't think it necessarily derodes his legitimacy when people are dying every day in Ukraine and he doesn't feel like it's safe to hold elections. I think that's a very legitimate ground to postpone elections. That doesn't necessarily delegitimize him. I think this is the question you need to ask the Ukrainian people. As an American Israeli citizen, I don't think it's my place to answer this question. I think that it's more than just the situation in Gaza. It's also the situation in Israel, because let's face it, the situation in Gaza happened because of the October 7th massacre, where Hamas invaded Israeli territory by land, by sea, by the air, and massacred 1,200 people, 1,400 people, something around that. And raped women. There was a report by the Association of Rape Crisis Centers in Israel that was sent to the UN recently, a very gruesome report, may I add. They mutilated people. They tortured people, the hostages. There's rumors that they're also getting raped. Doctors have even done investigation on the ones returned and found evidence of sexual abuse. And I think that this is what started the mess. Well, what they did to Israeli civilians, and as long as Israelis are not safe, they cannot stop this war, because this is war is a matter of survival for us. We just cannot allow a terror state to exist on our borders that continues to massacre us, to rape us, to torture us. And we just cannot let this continue anymore. Up to 40% of Israelis now suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder because of all the bombings. And if you talk about the ones who were living in the communities near Gaza, it's even worse. The statistics are even higher. And if you live this kind of reality, it's just very difficult, to know that I live in a little sliver of Israel called Netanya, and and anywhere I go to the south or the north, there could randomly be an explosion. There could randomly be a terror attack. I'm not safe to go anywhere with my kids. Where you go to you want Purim, Jewish holidays coming up. I want to buy my son a costume of Spider-Man, and instead, the only thing for sale is army uniforms and police uniforms. And I was like, what the hell? These are children, and instead of dressing up like Spider-Man, they want to dress up like IDF soldiers, like policemen, because those are the only costumes that they're selling in the markets these days. Or I have a daughter that, what is her latest thing? TikTok, Hamas versus Israel. Is this a way to raise children? Is this a life? Is this a way to grow up, to go to the airport and to see thousands of faces of hostages who are being held in Gaza, to only be able to fly abroad on El Al and no other airline, and thus have to do zillions of connector flights instead of having travel from freedom? Is this a way to live? I'm sorry, we cannot afford for a terrorist state to exist on borders that will constantly put our life into halt. I can't afford to go to an airport where every corner there's a sign say, go here if there's a bomb siren. Is this a way to live? Would you want to live like this? I don't think so. I think we need to finish Hamas, get them out of power so both the Israeli and the Gazan people can live a normal life, because this is not a life that I want for my children, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels this way. Well, I don't think every other day they would be calling for a ceasefire if they were a true and sufficient partner of Israel. That being said, Iran is going closer by the day to getting a nuclear bomb, and Israel is fighting against proxies of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas. These are all proxies of Iran that have to be defeated in order to go after the mullahs, which should be the #1 threat at the United States. Even if the United States doesn't like President Putin, one thing you can say about Putin that you can't say about the mullahs is that you can reason with him. He values his life more than any other consideration. The mullahs, not really. They chant death to Israel, death to America. They don't care if all of Iran dies, as long as if they also kill Israel and America in the process. Putin is not like that. I think he likes his life, and he wants to live, and he wants to continue to rule Russia, and he wants the Russian people to live. He's not the type of dictator that wants to commit mass suicide. So he's a better dictator than the mullahs. And from that perspective, it's better to prop up Israel fighting against proxies of Iran than Ukraine fighting against Putin. This is all orchestrated by Iran in order to distract the world from Iran's nuclear program. That's why this conflict started. They ordered probably Hamas to attack Israel on October 7th in such a strategic way. Believe me, the Hamas on their own don't have the brains to do something like that. Iran gave them the know-how in order to do something like October 7th. I don't think there's been any change. I just think they want to be the Shiite crescent that rules the whole Middle East, and they can't really rule the whole Middle East unless they neutralize Turkey and Saudi Arabia, who are two of the main powers in the Middle East. Unless they neutralize their opposition, they won't be successful in their goal. So they're focusing now just mainly on going after Israel, and they don't want to be distracted by the Saudis and by Turkey. Turkey has a lot of power to go after Iran in Syria. They support the Sunnis in Syria against the Shiites that are supported by Iran. There could be a full-scale war between Turkey and Iran if Iran wanted it. But no, they decided now they want to focus their energy on little Israel, get Israel out of the equation, and only then will they focus on Saudi Arabia and Turkey. And for this reason, no matter what the mullahs offer them, it wouldn't be wise for Mr. Erdogan or the Saudi king to agree to any kind of rapprochement with the mullahs, because they're next on the list. Russia could have a mediator. Well, that is a possibility, but I don't think Israel should mediate with Iran and its proxies right now. I think we should focus on finishing them. But we should also have good relations with Russia at the same time. Russia's a very important country, and we shouldn't lose sight of that as well. And we should try to get Russia to be as supportive as possible in destroying the threats to our security in the region. And that's what a major mistake Yair Lapid made when he was prime minister, by being antagonistic to Russia. Netanyahu's, friendship with Putin is the best way to go. That way we can go after Iran and ease, and Lebanon and Syria, and Russia doesn't stand in the way, and Russian interests are secure. So we make it clear we're not against Putin, we're just against Iran. Definitely, we have so many enemies. Why do we need Russia to be an enemy? Russia is much bigger than us. We can't really win against Russia, so it's better to be on good terms with them. And Ukraine is not our war. What is Russia asking for us? Just to keep our mouths shut? It's not very big request. I don't think so. I think that most of the Arabs understand Hamas is also an enemy of theirs. Hezbollah is also an enemy of theirs. I think they'll be angry about the civilian casualties for a little while, and then they'll get over it, and then they'll realize that it's in their best interest to make peace and not war with Israel.